All right, welcome back. I'm drinking some delicious coffee and I'm excited to continue our lessons in Rust together. We're going to look at the variables in Rust a little bit more deeply. We've already defined what they are, looked at data types and variables together. Let's actually take a look at what the rules for variables specifically are in Rust. When it comes to Rust, there are different ways to name a variable. So you can name variables with letters, as we've seen, digits, as we've seen, and the underscore character as well, which I think we've used underscores. So variables must begin with either an underscore or a letter. So you can't begin a variable with weird signs, let's say, okay, or symbols. Now, since Rust is case sensitive, upper score and lower score variables are distinct. All right, so what does that really mean? Well, that means that if you make a variable with an uppercase and you make a variable with a lowercase, are these the same variables? No, they would be distinct in Rust, okay? So those are the 1, 2, 3's, ABCs of rules when it comes to variables you should know in Rust. Now, additionally, it's important to note that data types do not have to be statically declared. They're optional, right? We've seen that. Data types are applied from the value assigned to the variable. Now, right? So we've seen that, right? We don't always have to declare when a number is negative that it's going to be unsigned, or if it's positive, it's going to be assigned, right? Now, before you want a refresher, we're going to go ahead and take a look at an example. But there's one more thing I want to move your attention to, and that's the concept of immutability. So, immutability, I think that's how you spell it. So, I'm going to tell you something. Variables are immutable by default. Okay, they're immutable. What does that mean? Well, it means different things. Unchangeable, you can see this word often in coding. But in the context of what we're referring to as variables, that means that variables are read-only in Rust by default. Again, by default. Don't get confused, right? We can change them, and I'll show you how. But by default, they're read-only. So how do we actually make it mutable? How can we have variables that we can change? Well, we can apply the mut keyword in order to make the variable mutable. Okay? There we go. There we go. What does this part really mean? So if you're a little bit confused about mutable and immutable, let's just take a look at some examples and it'll make a lot of sense that way. So we've got our function, so you can write out your function main at the bottom here. Remember, it's a new lesson. And hopefully you're saving these lessons. You know, you're saving your code afterwards, or you're sharing your code on Discord, keeping track of it. Of course, we have all of these resource solutions available for you. You just have to go to the solution videos to get them. But it's good to also keep track of your own notes and your own code as well. Okay, so let's say we want to make a immutable variable in Rust, right? How would we go about doing that? Let's make it larger so you can see. So I could say let x equals 5. And also notice that by default, we're setting this to assigned variable, right? Positive integer. If I want to print this out, I could just say print macro, and we're going to say, you know, we can just put x like this. If we run this code and we check the console, we're going to see 5. And we know this. We know this should work, right? We've done this now quite a few times. Now, we've set the variable up to 5 and assigned it this value. If we wanted to change it to 6, and let's say we want to run a calculation, so x, which is 5, is now going to equal x plus 1, right? Because that would be 5 plus 1, which is 6. If I try to run this code, we're going to get an error. And it says that we cannot assign twice to a mutable variable x, right? You see that? That's in our error code. And so we can't compile because we have this error. This is an immutable variable because that's the default. Now, if we want to make it mutable, if we want to be able to actually change this variable, I could just simply add the mutating keyword. And if we rerun now and we check our console at the bottom, we see 6. It works because now we can actually change the variable. And that's what we mean by immutable and mutable. So if you were a little bit confused, hopefully this makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what about an exercise? Like a quick exercise, nothing too crazy. In fact, I even have the exercise on my clipboard, so I'm going to paste it in. And we should actually move that over here.